All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Others can join when they come. I want to be cognizant of your time. First of all, a very good evening. Thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon. We've been really looking forward to this conversation because we know there's a lot of um, interesting things going on right now in our world, in the world, and especially in our world. So we wanted to have a good discussion with you and see what we could do to collaborate on ways to help our students. So today, I want to spend just a few minutes going through a few things. I don't think anything is going to be different than what you've already heard, but we did want to share a few thoughts from our perspective. I want to share with you what we're hearing, which isn't a lot. I read this morning that the actor Irfan Khan died, and one of the articles that spoke about him, I guess he had said something like, uncertainty is the only certainty. And that's so apt for us right now. And that applies to our conversation today. So we don't probably have a lot of answers, but I think it helps us all as a community discuss things and talk about what we're facing, what you're facing on the ground, how we're in a position to maybe support you with that. So I'll speak to you a little bit about what's going on here in the US. I'll tell you a little bit about what I anticipate some future scenarios would be. And then we really want to chat a little bit about what some of the things that we're already putting in place to support you in doing your jobs really well. But like I said, I want this to be a discussion. I really want to hear from you. I have our team on here. Palak and Chandra and Bhumi are on the call from India. Addie is here from Ohio and Ben's here from Toronto. So we're all here to kind of hear from you. And although we may not have all the answers that you're looking for today, we do want to understand what are some concerns, key concerns and questions that you continue to face, so that if we don't have the answer today, we can go and offer you some feedback or information once we can go find that information for you. So I want to do that. And then just talk a little bit about next steps, what we can possibly do together. I don't know how many of you are really familiar with Gen Next. I did have a few slides about who we are, what we do, but I'm going to save that to the end. If somebody's really, really curious about what we do as a company, I can share that. One thing I will add, though, feel free to unmute yourself and jump in if there's something that I'm not saying that you'd like to hear. If you want me to address something right away, please go ahead and jump in. It's a small community of about 30 people today. Current state of affairs. Well, we all know it's been a crazy few weeks, a couple months. Here in the US, though, we, from a university perspective, the universities have been dealing with the situation since probably January, because even though all of this became real for us late February, early March here in the US, and even in India for that matter, the universities were already dealing with a situation in China, because internationalization, and obviously in China, started working with those situations there and dealing with the students who were studying there, faculty traveling there, Chinese students here who went home for the Christmas break and weren't able to come. So there was a lot of issues that they were dealing back then. And then obviously it started moving around the world. Next was Italy. As you can imagine, Italy is a great study abroad destination for American students. So universities were dealing with it, and then boom, all of a sudden it spread out around the world. And then as we know it right now, life is so different than we've ever known it, and it may never come back to its original form. So what are universities doing? Obviously they, like us and everyone else, are in a whole new world. They're accepting reality, knowing that obviously they had to quickly switch to an online education here in the spring, get students out of their residence halls and make some accommodations there. They're doing all of that. And then obviously the next step was making a plan for what they would do for the summer and beyond, and then executing on that plan. It's a moving target, so it's really hard to pin down one solution or one plan that they will have for the future. But as I speak with universities, which I do almost on a daily basis, I know there are people who are working day and night trying to figure out the best possible solution for every community, every constituent they deal with. and they're going to be offering some solutions. Right now, the contingency planning for fall 2020, what's going to happen within the US for American domestic students, and then obviously beyond the borders in terms of international students, and then beyond 2020, what happened in the spring of 21. It's anybody's guess right now. But here's what I uh, would offer you in terms of some possible future scenarios. I have my opinions on it. Obviously, there's people who disagree with some of my predictions, but obviously, everybody has their opinion. But here's kind of what I see. Best case scenario, as we would all love to see, is the fall 2020 resuming as normal. Everybody's back online. University is running as normal. Students are coming from all over the world, in person, classes, etc. But the more I read about what's going on, the more I understand the situation at hand. That seems to be almost impossible with everything that's going on. So then obviously then we would assume that a spring 21 back to campus life would be a reality. But again, reading everything I'm reading with what they're predicting in terms of a second wave without a vaccine available, the worries about community spread and infections on campus. I mean, as you can imagine, 1,000 questions that nobody has the answers to. Is that really possible? I don't know yet. I mean, we hope it's back to normal, but we just don't know. Although I do know that as far as summer 2020, which doesn't really impact a lot of the international students, but a lot of domestic students take summer classes. So those semesters, those classes have been fully moved online for the most part. And then comes what will happen? What will happen if fall 2020 does not resume as we hope it will, which more every day it seems unlikely that it could go back to that schedule. Students, obviously from around the world, can't come and go to class. So the universities are, I think, starting to plan on offering some online programs so the students can actually start their programs wherever they are and not lose out on progress on their degrees. But then a lot of questions linger. Even if the universities were to open, could the students really be here? With the embassies that are closed with no definite date of reopening. Even if the embassies open and the students are able to go get a visa, what if their home countries? I mean, what if India is still in lockdown or Indian government doesn't allow people to travel outside of the country? Or what if the US government says you can't actually travel in from a country like India? So there's a lot of questions. So right now, there aren't a lot of answers, but I know universities are working day in and day out trying to figure out what to do with it. And you're probably hearing a lot of these questions. We'd love to hear from you in terms of what you're hearing. But these are the questions that we're hearing from everybody. Even here in the U.S., my neighbors have kids who are about to go to college, and they're also asking the same questions. But with the international students, there's this additional challenge of the visas and the F1 and the OPTs and all of the other legal issues that come into play being an international student. So these are some of the questions that we're seeing from students and parents, and I'm sure you've heard about. I'd love to hear from you when we open up for discussion, what kind of questions you're dealing with and how you're handling that and what help you need to kind of address some of those things. Again, the answer to most of these questions is we don't know at this point. How will science labs work? I don't know. I heard from one university I was discussing with that one of the ideas floated was they were going to actually, excuse me, create these lab kits and ship it out to all their students. Domestic students only or all international students? I don't know. I think it was just one idea that they were suggesting. Will the fee structure be any different if the courses were going to be online? I have talked to a few universities that are considering discounting for online programming. What will happen for student internships and job placements? I mean, obviously, that is so far out, we don't even know what's going to happen. I know a lot of concerns about the economy and what's going on here, the unemployment rate's going up, what that means for international students coming here to get their internships and CPTs and OPTs. How will universities handle the students if they were to come on campus? I read a really nice article yesterday that posed a lot of interesting questions that need to be answered. Although you may have seen people like the president of Purdue wrote a long article about how he is planning on opening up the university and separating groups of students and faculty and staff. But how realistic is it? I really don't know. When it comes to our work, and I guess your work too, is how are universities planning to recruit now? Will they visit schools in the fall? Well, obviously, unless travel is eased, we can't do that. A lot of universities are trying to figure out how to do that. Obviously, everybody's thinking about virtual, 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 what that means. I don't know. I have a few thoughts to share with you later in the presentation, but I also would love to get your feedback and insight so we can appropriately prepare the universities and help them plan. So this is what's been going on, and obviously since late February, early March, we as Gen Next, also have been focused on, okay, what do we need to do to address the new realities, the new normal? We've been going about business as usual. We're really fortunate in the sense that not only do we have a strong team of counselors on the ground, we also have a team here in North America. So we are in this unique position of being able to act as a conduit between India and the US and the students and the counselors and parents on the ground with universities here. And so we've been stepping up our engagement. We've actually, surprisingly, we've heard from a lot more students and parents inquiring about studying abroad. Just so you know, we don't necessarily only counsel students to come study in the US. We do have students to study in Canada and the UK and Australia and other countries, but the US seems to be the broadest interest that we see. We have been supporting counselors that we work with at all the schools that we work with, helping them with preparing letters of recommendation or helping review student essays and all the other things that we offer the counselors. And here in the US, we've been working with universities, helping with their outreach efforts, especially in this virtual world. We also kind of intensified our outreach and aligned our support and services to kind of cater to the need of the hour. We've started doing more virtual webinars, and I'll speak a little bit, I'll give you a couple of examples about what that means. We have lined up a whole bunch of thematic webinars that we would like to share with you. And as we're continuing to add to that, I think it'll be of great use to you and definitely for your students and parents. We have always worked with campus ambassadors. These are a group of students at different schools around the country. I think we have about 35 or 37 of them who are student leaders on campus, who are kind of doing an internship with us. They are the ones who are helping us engage students and their peers and their communities and their schools. So we've been working very aggressively with them to make sure that all of their friends who need help know how to reach us, and that way we can help them. And then we're adding on a few more services. One of the things that we have figured, one of the ideas that we have, and I'd love to get your thoughts on that, is to create a Facebook group for all of you in India called Counselor Connect. I know there are a lot of Facebook groups. I know there's a lot of different organizations people belong to, and we don't want to add to the mess, but we just want to make sure that we're creating a platform that makes the most sense. Obviously, day in and day out, there's resources, there's information, and just to create a community and a platform for people to ask and answer questions. We have a program called Blueprint for Success. That might be a very interesting tool for you. I will say a couple of things about it in a couple of minutes here, but it's our signature program that we've launched this past year. It's a career and college preparation program for high school students in India. Excuse me. So these are the webinars, virtual engagement things that we're working on. We just presented one on Saturday, which is about engineering programs at one of our partner universities called Marian University, who have an articulation program with Purdue for engineering. We're presenting one tomorrow on business management at Eastern Michigan, on the 9th of May on biological sciences at UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And the thought behind this is obviously everybody here in the US, all the universities want to do virtual outreach, which basically they're thinking about reaching out to students, webinars. But we also understand that students are not really that into that, right? So at some point, students are going to get bored and they're going to get burned out just sitting there and listening to universities presenting about their programs and their admission standards, et cetera. So what we want to do is to make it more interesting, make it attractive, and actually offer webinars on subject matter experts who actually can speak to students' career interests, which will be of interest to a particular group of students. So those are our ideas right now for in terms of thematic webinars, but we'd love to hear from you. What would you like? I mean, in terms of for students, do you think webinars on profile building and personal statement writing, et cetera, might be interesting? And for you personally, what would you like? I mean, can we bring in some experts in the sense that university representatives who've been in this business for a long time, who can help guide you in terms of how to write letters of recommendation or how to do this or how to do that? And the last thing, and this is more of a question, and I just addressed it when I was talking about thematic webinars, is virtual university visit. Is it really a thing going forward? Will it be of interest? Will it actually help? How attractive would it be for students to want to hear from hundreds and hundreds of universities from around the world on a Zoom webinar? I'd love to get your thoughts on that as well. This is the Counselor Connect Facebook page that I just alluded to a couple minutes ago. It's for peer learning and idea exchange. We just want to be able to share tried and tested best practices, not just from us to you, but also within the community. I mean, obviously we have a large network of counselors and other folks who work in college counseling in India. We want to create a platform for them to do some idea exchange and sharing of practices. Help you stay up to date on changes and strengthen and obviously expand our network of professionals within. So we're going to send out an invitation. But again, this is another question I have for you. Is this something that's needed, necessary, interesting? Would you want to be a part of another Facebook group like this? So when we open up here for discussion, please share all your thoughts on that. The last thing I think I have to speak about today is the Blueprint for Success program that we have. Like I said earlier, again, it's a comprehensive college and career planning program for 8th to 11th graders. There are 23 modules in the program that are spread out over 4 years. It's pretty comprehensive and it's fully integrated, and it's not going to disrupt or interrupt a student's schoolwork. These are about 6 to 7 modules delivered a year, and each module is about 45 minutes long. So we are working with a couple of schools in Bangalore already, piloting it this past year, and we've just kind of embedded them into their weekly schedule. But beyond the program itself, a part of it, and this is something that we're making available to all 8th through 12th graders, and would love to share this with you so you can give it to all of your students. Another tool in their toolkit is a career assessment tool. I've taken it, all of my staff have taken it, and we have about 485 students, I think, as of yesterday when I checked, who have taken it around the country. It's a pretty interesting tool. I know a lot of schools use different tools like these, but this is something at your disposal, and we will share with you information on how your students can access it and take it. And then lastly, I just wanted to kind of throw it out there. These are the university partners that we work with. And when we say partners, I just want to highlight a couple of things. These are universities that fund Gen Next Education to do all of the work we do on the ground in India for free. As you probably are aware, all the counseling that we do to students and all the support we provide counselors in schools is completely free of cost. And we're able to do that because these universities make an investment in us every year. And we're also not a commission-based agent. So we're counseling students to go to any university in the world without worry of earning a commission from a university, or for that matter, charging a student or their families. So those are the university partners. And then this is our team on the ground in India and here in North America. Many of you probably know some of our undergrad teams, members like Palak and Chandra and Bhumi, but then there's a few others who work on the graduate side, and then Addie, Ben, and I are here in North America. So that's what I have. We could talk a little bit about next steps and whatnot, but I want to go back to. I just want to open it up, right? I think probably go back to this slide and leave it here because I think these are the kinds of questions that we're addressing. So as we go forward, please unmute yourself uh, and ask your questions or share your thoughts, and then we'll just kind of go from there. And we're here as long as you need us to be this evening to talk about everything we need to talk about. So with that, I'll open up the panel, the discussion panel.
So this is Addie from Ohio. Hi, everyone. I'm gonna chime in here because we have a couple of questions that have come through the Q&A box. And while you all are kind of maybe formulating some specific questions for us, I'll share those that have been typed in. So can you hear me clearly, Girish?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So the first question comes from Preeti from NL Dalmia High School. She's asking about keeping the current scenario in mind. Would like to know if a student does not want to travel to the US, are there any courses available in India or any online courses they could enroll in?
Absolutely. Hi, Preeti. Great question. And I am not at liberty to share details yet, but we are in conversation right now with the university to do just that. Again, preparing for what may be in store for us in terms of maybe the next year being completely disrupted. We don't want students to lose a whole year of their undergraduate education. So yes, keep an eye out. We will be in touch with you. There are multiple universities who are probably going to be offering some online coursework.
Yeah.
Here are two things that I anticipate. Universities who are pretty adept at online delivery will probably start offering all of their international students online courses or the ability to start their programs online. Those universities that are not able to obviously will not. So if a student is in India and has been admitted to a university that is not capable of offering an online coursework right now, could potentially search for other programs where can they start taking online courses, which obviously will transfer to their institution of choice once they arrive in the US. Right? And obviously the students who are admitted to universities who are offering online programs can just enroll in their programs. But here's a question that's come up, and I think this question is actually on the screen. Will there be a different fee structure if it's going to be purely online? I mean, why would a student pay $30,000 to sit at home and take online courses? Because they're part of the investment is the campus experience. And that's where it gets a little tricky. I think universities obviously haven't fully thought through that part. But I have great news, and the great news when we are able to announce shortly this partnership that we're exploring is we will be able to offer undergraduate online, both undergrad and grad, online courses for students in India to start their programs at a very, I would say, an Indianized cost. So it'll be deeply discounted because we're adding some scholarships to it. And so there will be some really exciting programs coming up, and keep an eye out for those.
So, can you guys hear me?
Hi.
Hi, this is Ritu. Nice
Hey,
to see you,
Ritu.
Girish.
Nice to see you too. Minnesota misses you.
How is it going in Minnesota?
It's all right. We're sitting at home all day.
We internationally we get a lot of mixed news, whereas Minnesotans are protesting to be out and about as well, I believe.
Well, you know, we have our share of idiots here. Let's not get into that conversation.
Okay. Anyways, I have something to pitch in here.
Yeah.
So when I believe was it Priya who had a question about online courses?
Preeti.
Preeti. So Preeti, there are, and to people in general, there are courses offered by Howard University. Some of their courses online are free right now. And I believe Summer Online through Berkeley is also offering that.
Yes.
So, you know what, I have I have information more so for these two, as well as Australian National University, I believe. They have some courses which are free and online. So till other universities come up with stuff and till Girish shares more programs with us, whereas we can get our students started on these.
Yeah, great point, Ritu. Obviously, there's Coursera, there's edX. I just saw yesterday that Yale was offering a couple of programs, very limited courses for free for everybody. You know what we'll do, since you bring that up, Ritu, is
If we can
when we
put
send
together
out,
something,
yeah, we will send out a resource list of all of such courses
that would
that
be
are
really
available to
nice.
students.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
question back to you, Rita, since you're on there, I'm gonna ask you a question. Are students really interested in the online environment? I mean, will they be open to opportunities like this right now? What's going on the ground?
Absolutely, absolutely. So all of Singapore International is online. So I've had about 50 meetings with different students. I have 35 students that I'm
Okay.
helping directly, though our graduating batch is more than 100, but
Yeah,
I had 50 meetings in the last month itself.
okay.
All of those were online. All the classes are online. So students are up and running with online education.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it basically caters to their interests, right? They're so
actually,
comfortable sitting online. So
and there are so many platforms, so many forums right now that one can be on. If one doesn't work, the other does.
yeah.
So I think students are there. We just have to ramp up.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
students are very much there.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have another couple of questions coming in through the Q&A box. Two questions inquiring about career assessment and how they could access that.
Okay, so we will get you a link. Once this call is done, we will make sure everybody who's registered for this will get the link for that assessment. It's a pretty straightforward access. So let's make sure we include that on the list as well, Addie.
Perfect. So another question that's come through, is it possible to do the first couple of semesters from India via online classes and go abroad for the rest?
Absolutely. And I think that is the idea since everything is up in the air. Universities are working through details. Even here, for example, though students and universities are hopeful that fall semester will go as normal and students will be back on campus, like I said earlier, I doubt it. I'm really not confident. I'll give it a 1% chance of happening. So students need to be prepared for online education here as well, and then they'll eventually move. And the same thing will apply. The first question on this slide here is, what if students start virtual classes and then the visa gets denied later? I'm very optimistic, and here's kind of how I think about it. Obviously, students can do a semester, a whole year, maybe even up to 2 years before they come here. Depends on how things fall out over the next several months with COVID-19. But that's a very valid concern. Like, what if you invest your time and energy and money into let's say U.S. university's online program, and start taking classes, and then say January everything's back to normal and you go apply for a visa, you don't get it. I would actually argue the other side of it is say, I think if you're to go to an embassy for an interview, let's say November or December for a January visa, and if you can articulate and prove to them that, hey, you know what, you haven't wasted any time, you've actually started taking classes at your university that you intend to attend online in the fall, that might actually play to the student's benefit. At least that's what I think. But yeah, the real quick answer to that question is absolutely. You can start anytime. I will add this may be more detailed than you'd want to know. There have always been some restrictions with accreditation in the US in terms of how much of a course delivery should happen on campus at a university for the student to get a diploma from that university. And it's always typically has been more than 50%. So I have a 4-year degree program, 2 years could be somewhere else, and then 2 years on campus. But I will tell you what, with everything that's going on, I think higher education is going to go through a major upheaval, and even some of those restrictions will be debated and eased probably. So as of right now, if a student asks, can I just start my online courses and then eventually get to the campus whenever I can? Absolutely. I would strongly urge the student to do that.
Okay, so another question coming through our Q&A box is climate-based, I think. How open are universities in the US to having students from other countries during the pandemic?
Right now, obviously, there have been a few issues. When the university shut down and started to move everything online, they also eventually closed down the residence halls and asked all their students to leave. Not all universities did that. Some allowed their students to stay, those who couldn't go home for one reason or another. And the largest group of students that were impacted with that decision were our international students who, for some reason, couldn't. I mean, if you're an Italian student, you couldn't go home. If you're a Chinese student, you can go home. I mean, at least India was still allowing students to come back. But not everybody can afford to just buy a plane ticket and go home. So there are a lot of universities with a lot of international students still living on campus right now. And they've made special accommodations for them. They've put each student in a single room, spaced them out to maintain social distancing. Even at the cafeterias, they've created situations where the students not all going at the same time, and maintaining all of the social distancing rules have been recommended. Now, moving forward, that's another major issue. The reason I am so confident about my prediction that fall won't be on campus is because of that. How do you maintain social distancing when you have 10, 15, 20,000 students on campus living in dorms, taking classes and eating at the cafeteria, going to the student center? I think a lot of questions linger. They have no answers to that right now. So I will tell you this, as ambitious as universities are, as optimistic as they are, and as confident as they are in making some of these announcements, I will tell you over the next few weeks, you will see a lot of universities make the decision that it's not smart for them to have students on campus until we actually have a solution for coronavirus, which, short of a vaccine, I don't know what else could be a solution. So that's what makes me think that fall 2020 probably won't be online. And to be honest, I wouldn't want to scare anybody, but I wouldn't be surprised if spring 21 would also continue online, because there's too much at stake. Having thousands of students on campus, especially some students who have underlying health conditions, obviously having staff and faculty who are much older, much more of a affected group of people. So there's a lot of things, too many things for somebody to just say, okay, we'll wipe down every desk a student will sit on. And that's not the answer. So stay tuned. We will keep you posted, but those are my predictions for right now.
Okay, so another question here. Would the current health crisis affect early application, early decision process for fall 2021?
I would, just like everything else, I think there will be a modification to those. Just like May 1, all of a sudden is no longer the deadline, which used to be the holy grail. I would think the November 1 deadlines, et cetera, will be moved. I would say at this point, most offices on campus, especially the admissions office, aren't really thinking about fall 21. Yes, it's in their plans. They need to talk about it. But I think most of them are spending most of their time on figuring out what's going to happen come fall 2020. They're worried about their incoming class. They're worried about bleed. They're worried about so many things that they don't have answers to. So I would also anticipate, at least I can predict, that even some of those deadlines might be altered a little bit come October, November of 2020.
So one of our counselors here has a question from a student. The student relayed to her whether they have to wait for further information from universities. So basically, I think wanting to know, they've already received a confirmation letter regarding admission. Should they wait for additional information? And Sarisha, please feel free to chime in if I've misrepresented your question or your student's question.
Hi, Sirisha.
Hi. Hi, Ms. Girish. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, fine. Doing well. But yeah, difficult situation, so coping up.
Yeah. So what specifically is the student wondering?
Actually, he has got the confirmation letter, mail, and then he wanted to confirm to that university, but he's hesitant.
Okay.
He doesn't know whether really those things will work out. So he wants to write even IIT JEE, it's not working out, and they are clueless whether it will go on smoothly. And he's got college scholarship also, so he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah. I will just give you a blanket answer here, but then, what I'll say is, Chandran, you should probably chat a little bit more and maybe talk to the student directly. I'd like to understand which university, what program, et cetera, et cetera. But like I said, just saying, right? So May 1 used to be the deadline for students to confirm their attendance. Most universities have changed it. Some have gone as far as June 15th as a deadline. And that's a moving target. I think it's going to continue to change. So at this point, if he feels absolutely like pressure to make a decision, I mean, if he is absolutely sure that this is the institution he wants to attend, it doesn't hurt confirming his admission to say, I intend to attend the university. But then obviously everything else is still up in the air. So when the university makes more decisions about what fall would look like, what the scholarship would look like for future matriculation, et cetera, they will be in touch. And with the specific student, and this would apply to any student for any of you here, you need some specific contact information or specific information from that student's university, reach out to us. We can make those calls and try to get more information than what's publicly available. So we will try our best to do that. Same thing with the students, Sarisha. What we'll do is we can chat with the university and find out what's going on. But I will tell you this, most of the universities that I talk to, and I talk to at least one or two every day, they're all in the same boat. They're like, we don't know. We know for right now, our department has decided that we're gonna postpone the admission deadline, the commitment deadline. So it could be June 1, June 15th, or whatever. Will the scholarships stay the same? At this point, all universities will say that they're not gonna rescind any scholarship, that they're not gonna modify any scholarships. If, for example, the student says, no, I wanna come, I wanna defer a year. Or I wanna come, but I'll come as soon as you allow me to come, whether it's spring 21 or summer 21 or fall 21, whatever. So that's what they're saying now. But I've also heard a lot of concerns from counselors and parents to say, hey, I hear universities are in a little bit of a trouble, financial trouble with this. Will that impact scholarships? It could, but at this point, I don't think universities are going to do anything drastic to rescind scholarship or to reduce scholarship that'll further impact their ability to matriculate students come fall or spring of 21. So everything's up in the air. I always say to students and counselors and parents that just wait. You'll hear from the universities, or keep checking that university's website. They're making updates as best as possible. But use us. We're here. We have the unique ability to call somebody really quickly at a university and say, hey, what's the inside scoop? What's going on? So we can help you.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So we have a question about the curriculum and the potential for changes. So will any changes occur to the curriculum or syllabus due to the current scenario?
Potentially. I know I've had some conversations where the universities that I've spoken to have said, you know what if we move the entire academic year? Instead of starting in August, what if we're able to move to November and get rid of the Christmas break and then get rid of spring break and then kind of keep going through summer. So by fall 21, we're back on track. I've also just yesterday and the day before had a couple of conversations where universities were talking about moving to more of a block schedule where students aren't enrolled in 5-6 courses at the same time. You know, there are a couple of universities in the US that offer block programming where the students take one course for about 3.5 weeks, then get 4 days off and they take the next course. So they're fully immersed in one course. That's a great idea. That might be something that would work. That's not your traditional semester or trimester system. One university I just noticed actually changed their structure to a trimester system so that it has some flexibility to move the start dates. So there are a lot of things in play, a lot of questions and a lot of discussions happening on campuses. But I don't think that they will reduce the number of credits you'll need to graduate. So it'll still be, you know, on an average 120 credits. I don't think the system is quite there yet to move to a 3-year degree program or anything like that. But man, again, the times are so different. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to really change the entire higher ed scenario here. So you never know. I wouldn't be surprised if universities did a lot of things that nobody ever thought they would be interested in doing. So yeah, stay tuned is what I can say.
So do we have time for audio question?
Absolutely, any.
Okay. My questions are usually pretty complex, so pardon
Absolutely.
me for that. So with the graduating students,
Yeah.
they will get an EAD within which time period? So within the time period of 3 months, they're expected to find the job. And if that time expires, then they're expected to leave back and go to their country. And obviously getting back to the US, even with a job offer, could be difficult.
Yeah.
So do you know if there's anything from the US government are they looking to extend that time period? Because otherwise all the students who are going there,
Yeah.
they'll find it really tricky to find jobs there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just the government regulations in terms of the 90-day window, because, you know, in addition to that, there's obviously the challenges of where are you going to go find a job right now?
Yeah.
Right?
So the
So
graduating students is another set of students that I'm
it's a
really
whole another set
worried
of,
about.
so,
Yeah.
and I'll give you just anecdotally, I've spoken to a handful of graduating seniors who have reached out to me personally. And one of the, so let me wait on that, but here, you're right. So there's no clear regulatory changes yet to that 90-day window, what's going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. And you as a student, if I was a graduating senior on an F1 visa, I would be scared to leave and go home.
Yeah.
Because you're right. What are the chances of me being in India and getting a job here? And if I do, what are the chances of me being able to come back here and actually work, especially in the current climate of everything that's going on? So I spoke to 2 students about a couple of weeks ago who were both graduating seniors. Somehow they were introduced to me because of connections in India. And to both of them, I suggested exploring a graduate degree, wherein they start a grad program starting fall 2020, which allows them to stay on the F1. And once things go back to quote unquote normal or some semblance of normalcy, they can go back to their jobs, right? So what else? The other factor here is companies who have hired graduates who offer their jobs are postponing their start dates.
Correct.
Right? Even for domestic students. I have a lot of friends' kids who all graduated, they all have jobs. Everything is moved. I know one girl who's going to work for a consulting firm in Chicago. They have moved their start date to March 1st of next year.
Oh, of next year?
Of next year. So they're like, you stay home, do whatever you need to. You can report to work March 1st of next year. Right? So there's so many factors, right? The economic factor, the quarantine or the stay-at-home orders and social distancing factors. But this adds the additional wrinkle for an international student. If you're an international student who's been offered a job, and if the company is saying, well, you can't start right now, then you have to stay legal. I'm hoping that DHS and some of the other organizations will come up with some solutions for that, so that there's not this 90-day restricted window. And then, like I told these two students, I said, just enroll for a grad program. So it'll keep you alive on the F1. And then as and when you're able to start your job, you can obviously withdraw from a program and go work on your OPT. So we just have to get creative. And I'm sorry, it's not a definite answer, but you just have to get creative with some solutions right now.
That's fine. And I have one more.
Sure.
With respect to our rising seniors, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering if a lot of students are looking for deferrals this year, and the universities, I believe they approve the deferral, correct?
Yeah.
Do the universities generally approve the deferral and then it's through?
Yeah, so if a student is admitted and if they want to defer their start date by a semester or a year, I would strongly recommend that the student communicate that to the university.
Yeah.
So that they understand fully what the university's stance on that is. It's not a universal guarantee that every university will be like, okay, we admitted you for fall of 20, you don't want to come to fall of 21, we'll save you a spot. That may not be the case with every institution. So soon as possible, I would recommend the student communicate that interest with the university. So based on what the university says, the student and their families can make the right decision.
Right.
Don't just ignore it and say, oh, I got the I-20, but I'll just wait till next year to go, because that doesn't work that way. The university has to approve.
Correct. Because it could potentially lead to a huge backlog.
Yeah,
so
that's the other challenge, right? If they're
X
going to
number
selective,
of seats already filled, where do you take the new students who will be, ready to graduate and apply?
That obviously is a concern for selective universities where they're limited in their incoming classes. So if you're a class starting in 2020 and you want to wait till 21, they have to kind of somehow manage that, and the university would have to make the decision. But if you're not at a selective university like that, obviously they'll be happy whenever you can start. But I would advise that the student absolutely connect with the university and have a conversation with them. Ritu, since you bring that up, there's been some concerns I've been hearing from parents especially who say, you know what, if my son wants to apply to this university and now there's all these students who are deferring to next year, will there be more competition next year? I mean, that's a valid question to ask. If you're applying for a selective university that has a limited incoming class, instead of 10 applications, next year there'll be 20 applications for the same seats. So that would be challenging and interesting to observe as well.
Let's see how the universities react as well to the deferral requests.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ritu.
So Dhruv Gupta has a question about the possibility of admissions being canceled or students having to drop a year. What's the likelihood of that?
If a student has been admitted to a university, they will not rescind the admission decision. I don't think any university in their right minds would do that. So they would not drop that student or rescind the student from admissions. So if they've offered it. Now, obviously, the unsaid contract was that the student applied to a university, the university admitted him or her based on their admissibility criteria, and they've admitted for fall of 2020. But now we're in a completely different world. In the old world, if a student decided not to show up in the fall of 2020, you could safely say, you know what, the university will no longer guarantee you a spot for the next time you want to come to campus, because that's a student's fault for not showing up. But in this current climate, if a student can't show up because restrictions, visa issues, university not being on campus, et cetera, a student can very easily argue that, hey, I applied and I got in for an on-campus experience. If you're going to just offer me an online experience, I don't want to, and I want to wait till I can actually come to campus. And I think that's a reasonable ask of a student, and I think the university should honor that. And so there would be no such issues of a student being dropped automatically from the university if they decide not to take an online course, right? I would be very surprised if a university made that kind of a decision, or if a university compelled students to enroll in online programming for the fall of 2020. I think that should be given as an option for students to enroll. I hope that answers your question, Dhruv.
We have another question from an anonymous attendee. So what kind of career path would you advise for incoming high school students, considering the current scenario with work from home situations, safe jobs, etc.?
Public health careers. Obviously, I don't think before 2020 students had really considered a career in public health, but I think a lot of students, would start to look at that. Man, that's a great question. What careers, what jobs can be done online? But here's an interesting social conversation that's happening. We talk about university education being so important for careers and careers of the future. I am a strong believer in getting the skills necessary for you to be a global citizen and a global leader and have all those global skills, et cetera, et cetera. Very, very important. Careers of the future will prove that to be important. But yet, as we see every day, what we consider essential workers in the US right now are folks who are working at the grocery stores, who are working at restaurants doing takeout orders, who are, folks working in jobs that don't traditionally require a college degree. So it makes for a very interesting discussion about the value of a college degree. Now, obviously, you could argue many sides of that coin. And I would say, well, unfortunately, those kinds of jobs aren't the jobs that typically students that we work with are aspiring for, because those aren't the careers they're looking for. Obviously, technology, no questions about it. Healthcare, environmental science, whether you work from home, sitting on a laptop, or whether you are an essential worker going out to the hospitals and being a nurse or a doctor or a radiologist or whatever. This isn't my answer to that question, that, to be honest with you, hasn't changed from before coronavirus. If you haven't heard me speak to students on your campuses, one of the things I always say is careers of the future. What will they be? Definitely in technology, definitely in healthcare, definitely in environmental science, and obviously all of the other STEM-related programs. But at the same time, now I would add public health to the equation. I would say communication and international relations for sure, global conflict resolution for sure. So interesting careers are cropping up now. So my answers really hasn't changed from before coronavirus to after. And I really hope students are thinking long-term in terms of what, again, I can't predict it, and none of you can either, to predict what the world will look like 10 years from now. But if this situation is any indication, things can change so quickly. And technology has saved us quite a bit right now. The fact that we can sit here and have this conversation is because of technology. We couldn't have done this 10 years ago if coronavirus happened 10 years ago. So think about that. And obviously technology related jobs are going to be absolutely a need for the future, and solutions to these kinds of issues that we're dealing with right now.
Okay, and then we have two questions from Preeti. And Preeti, I may hand it off to you to see if you could deliver those verbally. One is related to career assessment, and the other has to do with contest or scholarship exams from Gen Next. So Preeti, do you wanna chime in and ask those? maybe you're not able to. So basically, I think she wanted to know if the career test assessment test would be online or offline.
Yeah, so the career assessment is online. Preeti, this is the program that Steve and I have spoken about, the Blueprint for Success program. Part of the program is the assessment. But to start with, especially given where we are right now, we wanted to offer every student the ability to take this assessment. It's an online assessment, takes maybe 20 minutes for the students to do it, and they get a really nice report at the end. It's really not, it's a really comprehensive assessment. It's not just like, okay, here's the job you should do. It gives more an idea of the kinds of career clusters that students should explore. So to the question that we just had in terms of what the careers of the future, what the students should be preparing for, this will be a great insight for them to say, all right, based on my interests and my dislikes and likes and aptitude, etc., these are the kinds of career clusters that may be of interest to me, so they can start exploring that. The link for that we will share with you, so you can use that. What was the second question, Addie?
Yeah, so she wanted to know about whether we conduct any contests or scholarship exams.
I'm glad you asked. I wasn't going to talk about it yet, but since you asked, I will say something about it. We have been working in partnership with universities here in the US to launch an exciting new program for Indian students called Global Scholar Search. And as you know, universities from across the US are really interested in attracting the best and the brightest, but we want to add some additional value to being a great student on campus. I don't have all of the details yet to share with you, but I'll give you a basic idea. What this program will be is we'll reach out to schools across the country, folks like you, to say, we need you to nominate 2 or 3 or maybe 5 students on your campus who are academically strong, who have great leadership skills, who have done a variety of different things, and who you would nominate to be selected for a Global Scholar program here in the US. I'm sure as I'm speaking to you, you can think of at least 3 students within your school community that would fit that bill. So once we launch this, the idea is to get them into this program. And on the flip side, the universities are now working through and kind of went on hold a little bit because of everything that we're facing. But the goal of the program is to get these students into programs that are highly selective or highly sought after, give them opportunities to be part of the Honors College on campus, some additional scholarships that the universities can offer these students beyond the regular merit-based scholarships, maybe some work study opportunities on campus. So really make it affordable for the student to be here. And that's all in recognition of the students' skills and their accomplishments. So keep an eye out for that as well. We'll be launching that program. I was hoping to launch it soon, but it may be a couple more months now given everything that's going on. But you'll hear from us on the Global Scholar Search program.
So Dhruv is inquiring about the changing way students' performance is being evaluated. So will there be any problems in the event that marks for exams, which have been postponed, are provided on the basis of internal assessment instead?
Yeah. Again, that's another moving target, right? All of a sudden, we don't know if the exams are going to be conducted and what's going on. As you already realized, IB has changed its final grades. Cambridge has changed its final grades. I don't know where we end up with CBSE. Here's what I will tell you. From the university standpoint, whatever the board decides, so whether it's the IB, IGCSE, CBSE, ISC, whatever board the student is, whatever the board determines to be the final grade and the criteria under which the student can be graduating from high school, the universities will accept that without question. So if, for example, CBSE exams don't get done, and you have to issue grades on internal assessments that you've had and graduate a student and provide them with a grade or a GPA or percentage of marks or whatever, as the final grade for 12th grade, the universities will accept that. The universities have decided already, this is something that I've heard across the board, that whatever the board decides, we will accept that without question. I will add one more thing to that. You know, as international students, the students need to submit certified documents and official documents, not just from schools, but also from banks and everything. And the universities also understand that in times like these, it's difficult to be able to produce those. A school might not be in session where a principal can sign off on a transcript or mail it directly from the school, et cetera, et cetera. So given the conditions, the universities are also willing to accept non-attested, non-official transcripts and bank statements and whatever else the university needs, with the hope that when everything goes back online, when I mean online, back to normal, the student, when they arrive to campus, are able to produce official documents as required. So that's the hope. So keep that in mind. I know a lot of students are probably freaking out about, I can't get my bank to issue an official statement to send it. They can even send it as a printout, and universities will accept it.
Okay, Ambika has a question for you. What happens to children who have not applied to universities in India and are only intending to go to the US? Will waiting for a year or when visas open be their only option?
Man, that's a great question. I've been thinking about that actually. I'm not sure. Two issues come to mind. On one, I'm not sure if colleges in India are open still to take applications. I don't follow the Indian college system much.
They are.
They are,
Yeah,
okay. So
pretty
if they are, then obviously the student could potentially apply. But at the end of the day, if you're a student that has your heart set on going to study abroad, do you really want to take that diversion right now? Probably not. So I don't want to feel any student compelled to have to apply and get admitted to an Indian university just so they're staying busy for a year. I don't think that's a great idea. And given the situation, they may not be able to come here or go to their country of choice for a while. And that's basically the reason why we have been working with this university to try to launch this online program. The idea behind it is that even though this particular university will offer the coursework, the student has multiple options. One is if they determine that, you know what, this online program is what will work best for them for the entirety of their undergraduate education, they can stay in India and do the online education from this institution, pending some questions about how a university can offer that diploma at the end. We may have some on-campus last semester programming and things like that. But for the most part, a student can do that. Two, a student can do the online programming from the university that we're going to bring to India and then transition or transfer to that university when they're ready, when they're able to, and continue their program on campus. Number three, which probably applies to a lot of students, is they start courses at this particular university because it's a very attractive course offering, degree offering, cost and everything. And then when they're able to transition to their universities, they can transfer these credits to that university and then actually enroll in the university that they've been admitted to and that they've been hoping and dreaming to attend. That's the plan number three. I've also heard from a lot of students who are talking about gap years. And in a typical year, I would have said, you know what, it's fair, it's reasonable to want to do a gap year, but make sure you don't waste your year by not doing anything meaningful. A gap year can be just you sitting around and playing games, right? It has to be something very meaningful toward your career, et cetera, et cetera. But right now, what would a student in India do on a gap year? If everything is under shutdown in August and September and October, a student can't do much unless it's like some online stuff for a research program and things like that. So I would be very cautious in terms of advising students about doing gap years. And at the end of the day, I think to me, if I was a 17-year-old kid facing the situation, the way I would approach it is like the worst case scenario, I can't go to the US to study till fall of 21. Best case scenario, maybe spring of 21. So I don't want to waste any time. I will start taking courses, whether my university offers it or whether a program that Gen Next is bringing. I take courses with it and enroll and start making progress, and then be prepared to move when I'm able to move. So that way you're not losing. I probably wouldn't. My last option would be to say, all right, well, you know what? I can't do all of these things. Maybe I should just apply to any university in India that will admit me and start taking classes there. I don't know how prudent that would be, especially given that the ability to transfer some of those courses once they're transitioning here is not a given, right? So there's not a guarantee that all the courses you take for about a year in India would transfer here and give you all those credits. So basically, you may be faced with doing a year in India just to be busy and just to be a student, and then transferring here and not really transferring courses, but starting all over again, right? So you gotta have to consider all of those situations. So like I said, bottom line, maybe I would look for some online courses offered by US universities where I can actually get US credits that will help me transfer those eventually to whatever institution I go attend. So I hope that answers that question.
So that was the last in our lineup of questions submitted through the Q&A. I don't know if there are any lingering questions from our attendees. And I know that there were a few things I think you wanted to touch on, Girish, at the conclusion of this.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to actually open up. I'd love to hear your thoughts on a couple of things. One, thank you for all these questions. These are great questions, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be a part of this conversation today. Your thoughts, your feedback on maybe three things. One, what's your feedback on virtual university visits or even thematic webinars? Like, what would you like to see us offer? What would you like to see us facilitate with the universities? Obviously, we have some ideas, but we'd love to hear from you. That's one. Number two, what do you think of this Facebook group idea? Is that something that you would welcome and be a part of and be a participant? And we would obviously invite hundreds of other folks around the country to be a part of that. That's number two. And number three, any ideas you have? Like, what do you need? What can we help you with? Besides answering some of these questions and kind of guessing on some of those questions, what are some other resources that we can offer you to help you do your job better? Should we start calling on people?
I think webinars will be great.
Yeah.
Webinars conducting.
So Sirisha, when you say webinars, are you talking about, like what I say, a thematic webinar where a professor from a university speaks about a specific program, or maybe even some research they're doing and careers in that field, et cetera? Or just a university representative coming on board and saying, here's my university, these many students, here's the admission standards, here's the deadline?
Actually, webinars related to all will be fine. Yeah, because they wanted to see the representatives also, but it's not possible. So through webinar, it will be good option. And now, because of the current scenario, choosing a right course will also help them if somebody guides them. So.
Okay. Well, one thing I will say, if you want to speak, just raise your hand and we can unmute you if you don't unmute yourself.
Sure. Good. Thank you.
But maybe launch the second poll that we have so we can give people a chance to think through a little bit.
Hi, Girish. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Hi.
This is Anjali from Vidyashil, Bangalore. How are you? Good to see you
Good,
guys here.
Anjali. How are you? Hope you're staying safe.
Yes, absolutely. We are staying safe. I've heard a lot of things, and thank you for a lot of clarity. I know there are still a lot of doubts out there, but
Mhm.
yes, I guess a Facebook group is a brilliant idea. It is always good to share best practices and learn more and more. Given the fluidity of the situation, I think it would be best to hold on to what kind of guidance we have and
You broke up there for a second, Anjali.
do obviously the right thing at the right time, doing a lot of things.
Can you restate that? I couldn't quite catch you. I think there's a connection issue.
Yeah, can you hear me now? So what I was
Yeah.
trying to say was that if I don't think we should be looking at thematic or university-based webinars as of now, given the fluidity of the situation, because we don't know what's going to happen to the current cohort of
Hmm.
fall 2020 or spring 2021 for that matter. It's a developing situation unless a vaccine or a cure comes our way. We're not sure whether India is going to allow students to travel abroad or other countries are going to welcome students from India, how the costs are going to be for them. A lot of our students are still planning to go. They have registered, some have even paid for the residences.
Hmm.
So we're all keeping our fingers crossed as far as that is concerned. But I think just right now, thematic webinars, if at all, would be a better idea
Yeah.
because we should go with the developing careers of the future. There's going to be a huge shift in the demand for different courses now.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, that's kind of what my sentiment is as well. And, this isn't just for the spring or fall 2020 or spring 21 students. This is in preparation for fall 21, right? So obviously, typically right now and over the next several months, we would have a lot of the universities traveling to India. Several come with us, several come with other providers who bring them to schools around the country, representatives, the ability to be there, and there's like a career a university fair every other day in every other city in India. All of that is obviously on pause. So my fear is that I think a lot of universities are now thinking, oh, you know what, we're going to just do a virtual visits with schools, which basically means all of you are going to be bombarded with universities requesting access to your students to just listen to them about their university, which is fair. But if I was a 17-year-old kid, do I want to sit through university presentation after university presentation? Probably not. Maybe after the third or fourth one, I'd be bored. But if a professor at a university was speaking on a topic that's of personal interest to me related to my career, I probably would be more inclined to participate in the webinar, regardless of which university it is, whether you're interested or not. It's secondary, right? Obviously, there's the underlying marketing and outreach piece of it, branding the university, but more than anything else, for the student to hear from a professor who's in the department or the degree program that the student's interested in, speaking about current goings on and research and career opportunities, that will help shape the students' interest better. That'll help them prepare for college for fall 21, especially these are the rising seniors who are going to be in 12th grade this coming year. Those are the kinds of things that we want to
Totally agree with you on that, Girish. I guess that is right now the best way to go forward.
do. Thank you for doing that. Because this afternoon, we're doing a webinar with universities in the US, and some of the recommendations that we want to offer is to do more of that than just bombard schools and students with information about the university, which after a while, as you know, can get really old and boring and tiring.
All right. Thank you, Girish. Thank you,
Yeah,
Addy. Thank you,
thanks,
everyone.
Anjali. Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So we did have a typed in comment from Upasana. indicating that students would be interested in options on profile building, opportunities to learn about profile building while stuck at home, and that they're also interested in ongoing research opportunities and learning about virtual internships that might be available to them. So I think thinking about potential subject matter for virtual engagements with students.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Upasana. Hope you're well. Yeah, we'll definitely include that in our efforts. We're basically trying to reach out to as many universities as we possibly can, asking them to identify a professor who is a good presenter, excuse me, was a good presenter, or was able to keep students' attention, and especially on an online platform, and identify topics that we think would be of great interest to Indian students. So we'll continue to share that information with you. Since we're waiting, I don't know if there's other questions coming up, but please do mark our email as a safe sender on your emails. I mean, obviously you're all here because you received our emails, so I'm assuming you're getting our emails, but just in case, keep an eye out for our future at GenNextEducation.com. We do now have a WhatsApp for Business number. If you can add that to your phone. So pretty soon here, we'll start communicating via WhatsApp as well. And so that's one thing to keep an eye out for. So I'm looking at the results of the poll. Thank you for your feedback. This is great. I will make sure that we will communicate with all of that, about all of those to you, and keep an eye out for the online offering that we're working with the university. Keep an eye out for a Facebook group invite, and for the Global Scholar Search program that we'll be announcing here pretty soon. Anything else? Any more questions, Addie?
No, let me see. Let me double check again. Input. So we did have a question about certain summer courses offered by a few universities. Would those be available online? I think Venica had asked that. I'm not sure if I'm accurately relaying that question, so please do chime in.
Venica, are you wondering about online courses for the summer, like online, like summer programs? Well, I'll assume that you are asking about online summer programs. Yeah, I know a lot of the summer programs that universities typically offer are moving online. I know there are very, like some programs like the Duke summer program, or the Berkeley and UCLA summer programs. They're really sought after summer programs. Part of that program is obviously the campus experience, and that was one of their hallmarks. But since they can't do that, I think they're going to try to do most of that online. Any specific summer program that you or your students are interested, if you haven't received much information from that program, let us know, and we would love to find more information for you on that. So.
Okay. I don't see any additional questions at this point.
No, I mean, again, thank you so much for your time this evening. I hope you all are staying safe. Be well. Keep an eye out for much more information from GenNext. As always, reach out to us with anything you need. We'd love to help you with everything that you're facing on the ground. And I anticipate maybe in a month from now, we'll have another one of these chats with more information, more updates. So I look forward to talking to you then. And I definitely look forward to being able to come to India again and see you in person at your school. So till then, stay safe. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Girish.
Yeah, thank you, Ambika.